And what's going down, folks? Welcome to the Land Timber Stream. This Wednesday night, we are at Hump Day, and it is day number 466 here in this journey towards that CCIE number. So we were going to talk a little bit about graphing OSPF. That's the original title I started talking about, but I am going to talk a little bit more too about sort of the pace and intensity of things that has really started to grow. So yeah, I have about 11 free weekends before my first exam attempt. 89 days all in all, and we're grinding. So still working on flashcards. My flashcards though are getting a lot more. I mean, they're getting very specific. Like even during study for in preparation for the written exam, is very content principle based. Now though, I'm using these flashcards, as you can see, 5 new so far today, to help me increase my speed. So I'll give you maybe a couple of examples. Here's one right here. So it's config RIP version 2, ensure only interface is advertised, redistribute loopback, updates should only be processed for the neighbor on this network. If another RIP router is installed on a link, updates should only be installed from this neighbor. And neighbor is using plain text authentication with a password, CCR or bus. It looks like a lab, and it kind of is a little mini lab, but on the scale of what I'm working on now, this is small, and I need to be able to pump this out quick, this configuration. So that's what I'm doing. When I'm going through these flashcards, I will pull up Notepad or Visual Studio Code, depending on where I am, or just mentally, depending on where I'm at, and I will try to knock out this config, correct it, score myself, and then wait for the flashcard to pop up again, depending on how I did. So yeah, I've been doing these and trying to label them like config, and then I don't actually want to score that one yet, but I think I've got that one pretty much. The big key here, for example, is passive interface default. And then this distribute list gateway, which I'd sort of forgotten about, this option with a distribute list and RIP. RIP doesn't have a lot of, it has very few controls over it. It's very rudimentary, so they like to, in some of these practice labs, pull up some sort of esoteric and challenging things to do, but you just have to remember things like this. And then this is interesting, right? So you have to do with RIP, if you want plain text authentication, you can do a keychain, and then you just specify in the interface that you're doing a text mode, a plain text, and that you are doing authentication with this keychain here. So anyway, stuff like that is good, and I'm going over and over. Mode and command to become the VTP primary server. This kind of got me on a lab. What you have to remember for this is that you have to be in exec mode. So you're not in, privilege mode to do this. You do all your config except for, promoting as a primary server. So things like this, you have to do exec VTP primary, right? And VLAN. You don't have to specify VLAN. It defaults to that because you can do also MST information there, right? But anyway, that's an example of the kind of things I'm working on flashcards, and I'm continuing to maintain. I got caught up yesterday, but I'm continuing to add more cards, and as I hit things that I should know, configurations I need to memorize, as I'm labbing, I'll actually just enter it in there, and I'll hit myself. Darn it, why didn't you remember that? And then I'll add a flashcard for it. So this is key to my, me developing speed and training the memory as we're in this mode right now, lightning mode. The final sort of weeks and months before the actual exam attempt. So yeah, sharpening the saw, that's what I'm working on. And as I mentioned here, trying to find a rhythm, because we'll take this week, for example. Weekends are obviously big, and I need to do something with where this is so that I can this lab plan. Hey, Mark Milo, at least I'll give you access to documentation in case you do not remember the command. Yeah, and that's often the case, Mark Milo, is that's a great point, is if I can at least remember, maybe I don't remember the entire command, but if I remember, one, where to find it, and two, kind of maybe one or two keywords in the command, or, is that interface level? Is that, I can coax it out of maybe out of the parser itself, or again, use the documentation. And I'm trying to practice doing that during the labs as well. So I had an example today or yesterday where I had to do BGP dynamic neighbors. I could not remember that configuration, but I found it pretty darn quick. So that got me through that section of the lab. But others have mentioned to me that it's good to be prepared. Obviously, you don't want to have to rely on it. And if you do, it's going to take valuable time. So I'm going to try to, train this old man memory as much as I can. But Mark Milo says, I'm just thinking about how many commands BGP has. And what are the odds of you remembering every single one? So having documentation is great. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much you can do with BGP. Yeah, so I'm trying to catch a pace. As I mentioned, I have to be very conscientious of these Cisco expert level lab hours because I only have 150. I've already joined them down to about 140, and I'm on lab 12. This is probably not a sufficient estimate at the rate I'm going. I will get faster, but I'm doing a few things I'm probably going to save a lot of these for the weekend. However, I've carved myself out for myself this week 2 of these this weekend. And these take a long time, man. These are like 6 hours each, plus the troubleshooting. So that's very ambitious. Until I get faster, this pace may have to be adjusted. Dude, friend, that's a nice thing, being able to look up a command, but like you said, time is critical. The lab is 20 hours of work crammed in 8 hours. And I'm finding that with doing these labs, right? So the more I can jam into memory, and again, this is not something that I can maintain for this type of rigorous memorization and maintenance. Flashcards helps, but maintaining these configurations, like it took me a long time to get the PPPoE server and client configuration committed to memory. Now I can knock that out like pretty quickly, but as time goes by, that gets hard to keep in that area. Whoa, we get a sub. Dude, friend, thank you for that Twitch Prime sub. 8 months. Wow, dude, friend, you might be the longest, have the most subscribers a month. Thank you very much for the support here on the Land Tamer stream. Enjoy your good bit emotes. As always, and always wish you good bits as well, my friend, in your CCDP exam coming up. I don't even know how to spam the bits. Spam the bits, folks, if you got them. Thank you very much again for that support and for hanging out with us here on the stream and encouraging us and sharing your sort of cert plan. I think it's very wise what you're doing, dude, for him. Marmila, that is another issue. How often can you spend time on recall? Depends on how much you might be using it at work. Yeah, that's the severe disadvantage I have, Marmila, is I use BGP, some at work. But other than that, some EIGRP, some QoS, but I'm mainly doing cloud stuff these days. So that makes it even harder. While 1 month behind on due for him. Yeah, I hit 8 months next month. All right. You know what? Hopefully, I wish I could do different badges, but I need to look into how to do that. I will use the muscle memory approach to all the commands for the lab. And that's what others have told me. Other mentors have said, your muscle memory needs to be lightning fast. DMVPN, you'd be able to knock that out like without even thinking about it. And I've been practicing that. That's where the flashcards help. Pretty much most of these labs I've come across have DMVPN tunnels of one type or another. So yeah, because where you're going to lose time, I think, is, and where I've lost time in these practice labs, is the corner cases, the messed up things they throw at you, the screwed up like design that you have to leave there and fix and or implement. So all the normal stuff you need to have down like super fast. It is a speed contest for sure. So anyway, on my pacing, speaking of that, I'm really watching these hours, and I found that, for example, not so much for a troubleshooting lab, but for a config lab, I'm probably going to have to save those for the weekends for the Cisco expert level, just because there's ramp up time, there's ramp down time, and it's hard for me to switch between like the foundation lab and the troubleshooting and the config. You can do that in the other parts of the workbook, like in the INE workbook, for example. You can like start over here and jump over here a little bit, just to mix things up, depending on if you have like a 30-minute break or if you have 2 hours. I'm learning to pace that because you want your time to be as most efficient. I have not found the formula yet. This is my like second week of intense, solid, just labbing practice. So I'll figure that out as I go along. I have such an intense and ambitious pace mapped out here to get all these labs done by October the 14th. I will adjust as needed. So if I get down here, figure out I'm behind, I may reschedule when I do my graded assessments. I may move those up. Mark Mila, plus you need to be able to keep your concentration for that long. Not always easy. Yes. I find my mind wandering after a good 2-3 hours. I have to snap myself back. Give you mad props for doing this for 5+ hours. Yeah, it's tough. I tend to take some breaks, to be honest, on the weekends for that reason. I do want to prepare my endurance for the actual 8.5 hour lab. But when you're labbing every day and long weekends, I think that's pretty much endurance enough versus doing the whole 8-hour session. Because what I'm attuned to is monitoring my own like mental fatigue and keeping that in check. So yeah, I'm putting in rest periods. Now, I may, if time allows it, where I have a couple days where I'm just unable to lab those days for whatever reason, I may let a few days go by and then weekend hit and go for like a 8-hour session. I've done that before on the stream, as you folks know. I've labbed here for 12, 13 hours on stream. I think I'm okay endurance-wise. It's just there are times when I just get where I have to step back because I'm just not going. I'm spinning my wheels, and that's one thing that was really interesting in one of Tim McConaughey's blogs that he mentioned. He got down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and he just decided just to move on to something else. And just for the sake of time, and he knew he needed to do that section, but he found that he came back to it later and saw the problem right away. Like he was amazed that he had made a very simple mistake. That has happened to me too. So that's very important, learning to monitor your own mindset and what you need to be doing. So yeah, it's very intense. This is the most intense. I thought I was already labbing a lot, but now it's just pretty much every moment that I can afford, I'm popping open a lab and working on it. So during the week, if I can't do the config sections of the Cisco labs, which I pretty much resolved to that for the most part, I can work on the troubleshooting and like the foundations, because these I can lab. No, I don't want to do that. These I can lab. I've got plenty of rack rental hours, and I've got Azure hours, and today I've got my lab running over here, Foundations Lab 3. These are not as bad, these foundations. They're not as bad to ramp up and ramp down as a true like config lab. But yeah, that's going to get more and more challenging as I get down here. Anyway, that's what's going on. Everything's going well, though. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, that's differences in configs versus troubleshooting. We talked about that. Lab recovery phases. So, as I mentioned yesterday, I had to take time. I had to stop labbing. I was stuck on OSPF. I'm still stuck on an OSPF issue, but I'm taking time to get better at graphing and also learning some of the deeper rules of OSPF. So, again, the book I showed yesterday on stream, I spent some more time in that book. And in the foundation lab, where I wasn't so worried about burning hours, I fired that up in Azure, and I took some time to like map out, you know, the graph. And there's still something that's bugging me that I'm about to find out because I'm about to look in the answer key. But yeah, I need those recovery phases to, it's one thing just to lab, but the whole purpose is to not just develop speed, but to find those weaknesses and understand when you trip up and why. And so that's something else I'm going to do during the week, is focus on taking those bits of time that I have in evenings, at lunch, and before work to hit those weak areas and try to figure out if there's something I hit and I don't understand. That's a yellow flag or red flag, and I need to stop, figure that out, why I don't understand it. Memorizing a command is one thing. I'll let the flashcards sort of handle that out, and let those cards fall where they may. But if there's something fundamental that I hit that I don't understand, that I'm taking a little time for that. But anyway, that's where we're at. TA12, I did start on that a little bit today. I backed off, decided to go back to the Foundation Lab 3. It's a great lab. I love it. And I'm working on that tonight. Already got the lab running here, burning some Azure hours on that. And I'll be working on some OSPF troubleshooting. It's an interesting issue. It's a very unusual topology that they've thrown at me in this Foundation Lab. The area 0 is, if I saw this in production, I'd be like, WTF, but yeah, it may be related to that. It may be related to a network type of a link and a redistribution, or a summarization issue. Basically, I have a network. I have a /32, a subnet of a /24. The /32 is getting advertised into a stub area. But the /24 is not. And it's kicking my butt, but I'm about to figure it out. And I have a restriction. I know that you can change the network type. Some network types will not advertise the /24, and some will, but I'm restricted by network types and the restrictions on this configuration. So I'm not allowed to change. And that's kind of where the challenge is, and I'm trying to figure out. Let's see. Mark Milo says, yeah, the database also challenged me to get through it quickly. Fine, it takes me a lot of practice getting quicker at. Yeah, same here. I definitely have that weakness. That's what I'm least familiar with in production and on the job is OSPF. I have some, but very little. Here's a meat chunk. One of the members of our Discord server. And I'm not good at pronouncing I'm looking over here at another PC. Sorry, folks. Yeah, Vanderaj posted this. He's got some great content on it. This is about Ansible iOS BGP module. So definitely check it out if you've been playing with Ansible, which I have a little bit. I'm not ready yet, but I just know the content he posted in Discord, so I'm sharing that. Folks, if you have member content, if you do blogging, if you do vlogging, as I've always said in the Discord channel, feel free to. It's not just. It's called Land Tamers because I couldn't think of anything else really better to call it, but to me that doesn't matter. It's all about the community, and post in the member content updates. There's a follow me channel. If you're trying to get your Twitter going or your Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, feel free to post it in there. Remember, content updates, anytime you post something, you want others to check it out or you think they might be useful to them, feel free to post it in there. And if you're a streamer, we've got a number of streamers in the Discord. Feel free to post in there when you're about to stream, and or if you've got a delay or whatever the case may be. So I know that you know, Adam from the future is posting there, and a few others from time to time. So yeah, definitely check it out. That's gonna be it for me tonight. Thanks for hanging out, folks. Thanks for your support. As always, sending good bits telepathically onto your circuits and your wires, and wish you the best. And I'll be back here tomorrow night with another update and maybe some cool links and some cool chats. So see y'all tomorrow night, same time here in the Land Tamer stream. Have a good night.